Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Louise Robbins, and I would like to introduce Avra Reddy, running for Alder from District 8. As we begin, please tell our viewers a bit about how your educational, vocational, and civic experience has prepared you for the position and why you decided to run for Alder.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Grayslake, Illinois. But I moved here in the summer of 2016 to work on the primaries in Madison, Wisconsin. So I was working for the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, and I fellowed for them for 3 months at 16 years old. I lived here with a professor at UW-Madison and his wife. And during that time, I had the chance to connect with a lot of voters. I probably knocked upwards of maybe like 2,000 doors that summer. And made over at least 4,000 calls to voters in Madison. And all of that has prepared me because connecting with voters is really important. And then when I decided to come to school at Madison, I worked the midterms. And during the midterms, I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of students. And canvassing and civic duty is really important because it gives you a chance to connect with voters. And my main job over the past 2 years has been to turn voters out, to get them to care about these issues that we're facing. And so now I want to help impact the city in a different way.
Madison's efforts to address chronic homelessness have appeared to fall short, especially with regard to providing sufficient support systems for a housing first approach. What ideas do you have that might create greater success for projects such as the one at Tree Lane?
Yeah, so in issues addressing the homelessness, I think that the City of Madison needs to do a better job of increasing funding for programs. And also in regards to bus rapid transit and public transportation, we need to do a good job of increasing bus lines to run to poorer neighborhoods, to neighborhoods experiencing more problems, because one of the ways that we pull ourselves out of having a large homeless population is by creating more rapid transit lines and more public transportation lines that run to poorer neighborhoods so people can get to jobs and have easier access to jobs. And running them later into the night so that people working from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Have means of transportation so that they can work. And then also in regards to addressing the homeless population, we need to increase affordable housing, and we need to have places where the homeless can live.
The Madison Police Department has been faulted for not having appropriate policies and training around de-escalation and use of force, especially with regard to people of color. What is your perspective on whether any changes are needed in ways Madison police operate in our community?
Yeah, so I'm a student at UW-Madison, and so it's really important to me that students have a good relationship with the police. I think on a college campus you see a lot of police interactions in regard to alcohol. And so it's really important to me that people in my district, in the 8th district, have a strong relationship with the police. I think one of the ways that we can better our police department is by running regular checks on the chief of police. Another thing that we can do is specifically in the 8th district is to increase relationships between students and the police, is to hold sessions where students can come and talk to the police about problems they're facing. And we can also increase relationships by working with Greek life on campus. A lot of Greek life on campus is in the 8th district, and I think it's important that Greek life and police have a good relationship, especially when it comes to students on a college campus.
There is a perception that Madison's story is a tale of two cities, one in which people of color are less likely to experience success. What can be done to ensure that Madison is a community in which all people can thrive?
Yeah. Well, Madison is expected to see a lot of growth in the next 5 years, and I think we can all admit that there's an equity problem in the city, and in order to address the equity problem, we need to all admit that we're at fault and that we need to do better. And one of the ways that we can do that, I mentioned this earlier, is by increasing public transportation lines to poorer areas. We can also so we can increase public transportation lines to poorer areas. We also need to support business owners of color. Madison has a very slim ratio of business owners of color to white owners of color. to white people, and we need to increase the amount of business licenses that we're giving out to people of color because we need to support them and we need to allow them to thrive. Especially in a college town when you have so many students of color coming out of UW-Madison, you want to make sure that they feel safe and sound when they're choosing to live in Madison so that we don't experience a brain drain.
What issue have you identified as being of primary concern to the residents of your district, and how would you approach tackling it?
A primary concern for students on campus is definitely affordable housing. I think that when you look at the 8th District, you see all of these apartment buildings that are very, very pricey. I know personally, I had to sign my lease for next year in mid-October, and that's crazy. All my friends at other college campuses basically signed like last month. So I was signing 3 or 4 months earlier than them. And the reason for that is because we have so little housing. And so one of the ways to drive down the price of housing is to encourage people to build. We need to encourage builders and developers to create new high-density housing. High-density housing is also important because we need to include as many housing availability in the small space that we have. So things like apartment buildings built high and built with smaller rooms is really important.
The relationship between the council and the mayor appears at times contentious. Is this a problem, and if so, how would you improve the relationship?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that specifically coming from a student perspective, which is why I'm running because I want to create a voice for students at the city level. We need to increase the relationship between the mayor and students by having the mayor come to campus. I think often students, and we saw this in midterms in the 8th District, feel as if they are undervalued in comparison to the rest of Madison's voters. And in order to address that issue, we need to invite other city councilors, like city councilors or a city councilor from the 2nd District, where more student housing is, and the mayor to come to campus so that we can work together to create a community sense. And I want to bring that feeling to city council by working with the mayor and other students to find what students want and what the mayor can do to impact them.
What changes, if any, should be made in how the city approaches major projects, such as the Judge Doyle Square and the public market?
Yeah. We need to support unions, supporting unions at all costs. I said this earlier, Madison is expected to see a huge amount of growth in the next 5 years. And it's important that we're bringing in union workers to create buildings and especially when we're looking at increasing housing development in the next 5 years. It's important that we support unions because unions are key developers, and we can't outprice unions in the city.
What council committees do you want to serve on, and why?
One of the key committees that I would like to serve on is the Education Committee. Education is really important to me, and developing a good relationship between the school board and city council is something that I highly value. We just recently saw a very high racial inequity with Madison's school board. An 11-year-old girl was assaulted in school by an administrator, and as a woman of color going through the education system right now, it's really important to me that we work with the school board and the city hand in hand to create a more equitable school system for our children. And one of the other ways that I plan to do that through the Education Committee is by increasing funding for after-school programs. And so when we're talking about committees that I would like to serve on, the Education Committee is my prime committee choice.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
I'm running in the 8th District because the 8th District is primarily full of student housing. I care about the students in the district and I care about the city, and I think I've proved that through my work here in 2016, my work here again in midterms. I've knocked doors, I've made phone calls in the city, and so I care about its voters and I care about what other people care about, and I'm running because I want to change that. Additionally, a woman hasn't held the seat in 26 years, and if we want the 8th District to grow in terms of value and success, we need to elect somebody that looks like the district and that cares about the issues the district is facing in terms of people of color and women and public safety, and so that's why I'm running.
I want to thank Avra Reddy for speaking with us and the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. Please vote in this and every election. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.